Advanced Studio Classroom is on the air. What do India's Republic Day, New Zealand's Anniversary Day, and Australia Day have in common? Find out on today's Advanced Studio Classroom. Hello there, friends, and welcome to Advanced Radio. So glad you could join us here. My name is Liz Archer, and we're going to continue on with the second day of our holidays article. Holidays here and there. Today is January 27th. We are on page 37 of your January Advance magazine. Now, with me to talk about all the festivities are Howie and Winnie. Hello there.
Hello, Liz.
Hi, Liz. Hello, listeners.
Okay, now yesterday we talked about Chinese Lunar New Year, but in a specific location, Guangzhou to be more exact. What can you tell us about yesterday's discussion? What do you remember, Howie?
I remember that it was a very descriptive article. That's what I really appreciated about it. How faces were jammed together and they were blanketing all these streets, and it was a marathon. It was an odyssey. I liked how the writer really described how it was a really tiring experience, but worth it.
Okay, and what do you remember, Winnie?
Yes, even though it was a very long journey for many people, we also talked about how it was worth it. That even though they might have to not sleep for 36 hours, seeing family again was that valuable.
Okay, so yesterday we talked about Chinese Lunar New Year. But today we have 3 other places to go. We're not going to be in Guangzhou. In fact, we're going to visit some other places in the region. Now, if you have your magazine, please turn to page 37. We're at the top of the second column, and here's the first reading. Holidays in Other Places.
Holidays in Other Places. Although yesterday marked the beginning of the Lunar New Year holiday, other groups around the world had different kinds of holidays. For example, the Indians observe their Republic Day on January 26 each year with spectacular parades featuring elephants, camels, ethnic dancers, and soldiers marching in a brilliant display of color.
Thank you, Steve, for the reading. So what's the first holiday we're looking at for today, Howie?
We're looking at Republic Day in India.
All right, and how do the people in India celebrate this day, Winnie?
Well, on January 26 each year, there are spectacular parades featuring elephants, camels, ethnic dancers, and soldiers marching in a brilliant display of color.
Okay, definitely sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes, it
does. A lot
does.
of parades. Okay, we know elephants. We know camels. What about ethnic dancers? Why do we have the term ethnic dancers?
I'm guessing it's because when we think of dancing, there's many kinds of dancing. There's ballet, there's modern dancing. Here, when we're talking about ethnic dancing, we're probably talking about more traditional dancing, something from their past, something from their culture. So we're distinguishing it between something that's modern, perhaps, and something that's more traditional.
Okay, and remember, India is actually a pretty big country, and they have a lot of people groups there. Different ethnicities can be found in India. And so I would imagine, since it's a national day, that these ethnic groups would like to be represented in the celebrations. And so each ethnic group would have their own special way of doing their traditional dances. And then we also hear or see that we have all these soldiers marching in these different bright colors. Being a national day, of course, you would have to have soldiers come out and show some pretty fancy work in their marching. Now, in my research, Republic Day started on January 26, 1950. Is that right, Howie?
That's right. It marks the adoption of the Indian Constitution because I think several years earlier, in 1947, that's when they celebrated their independence from English rule.
Right. So after 1947, it took 3 years for them to figure out what their constitution is going to look like. And after finally adopting it, 1950, January 26, that was the year that India declared itself as a republic. Okay, so January 26th, not just about the Chinese Lunar New Year, this year at least, but it's also about India's Republic Day.
And we can see why it's a big deal because they have their constitution and they really want to celebrate it. It marks a very important occasion in their history, and they have a parade and even have elephants walking down the streets. I can't imagine that. And camels even, too. Dancers and soldiers marching, I've seen that before, but not elephants and camels.
Okay. Would you like to go see it?
Oh, definitely.
Yes,
What about you?
Definitely.
Okay. Well, India is not the only country that's got January 26th as a special national holiday. We're moving on to another country. Here's our second reading. We're on line 19, Australia.
Australia. In 1833, Australians began observing Australia Day on January 26 as a tribute to the first Englishmen to set foot on the continent. The holiday is treated differently in different parts of the nation. Some places hold fairs featuring songs, dance, and barbecues. Others treat Australia Day as a time to reflect on what Australians have achieved and where they want to go as a nation.
So we've moved on to a different country, or should I say different continent. Australia is the only country that could claim as a continent as well. Well, Australia. Now, why do the Aussies, people from Australia, why do they celebrate Australia Day, Howie?
Well, according to the article, it's a tribute to the first Englishman that set foot on the continent.
Okay.
It's to remember that day.
Tribute. What does tribute mean?
Tribute means that it's something that you do to remember or to honor something or someone. And so in this case, they are honoring the first Englishman to set foot on the continent.
Okay, now the word tribute, can we think of other examples?
I've heard tributes written as songs.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes in a book. Someone may write it in the beginning of a book, like a little foreword. It's a tribute to maybe a person,
Okay.
what the book is about.
Right. I'm dedicating this book. I want to thank so-and-so for all their support and encouragement. Without this person, I would not have been able to accomplish this. This is my tribute to them.
That's right. A lot of times war memorials pay tribute to the soldiers that have served in the war. And so in Washington, D.C., I know, for example, there's a Vietnam War Memorial that paid tribute to soldiers during the Vietnam War.
A good example. Now, going back to Australia Day, remember Australia is a very, very big place. So, as we can see in the next sentence, the holiday is treated differently in different parts of the nation. For example, lines 23 to 24.
Some places hold fairs featuring songs, dance, and barbecues, and others treat Australia Day as a time to reflect on what Australians have achieved and where they want to go as a nation. So it sounds like some people have a really big party and other people take time to reflect.
Right, the parties, the songs, the fairs, the barbecues. They sound like a county fair to me, like the kind that you would see in the U.S. in the summers. A lot of fun. People have a good time.
I have a friend who's from Australia. We lived together while we were in England, and he told me it's a pretty big deal in Australia. In the big cities like Sydney and Perth, there are fireworks and there are parties going around everywhere. And of course, in some of the smaller areas, they're not going to have that much money to celebrate. But everywhere across the continent, people are in a very festive mood.
That's right. They do take it very seriously in a fun way. But not everybody does it that way. As we see in lines 25 to 27, that there are those who take a more serious approach. What has Australia done, and what does the future look like for Australia? They reflect, as we see in the article. Actually, in a way, it's much like how many people celebrate their birthdays, if you think about it. I mean, Australia Day is, in a way, like a birthday celebration for the country. Some choose to have it, with a lot of style and pizzazz, parties and all that. And some people choose to be more reflective. Same thing with birthdays. I know people who have big birthday parties, they want to really celebrate the moment. But then you also have people who tend to reflect, especially as the years go by. They begin to wonder, what have I done? What about my dreams? And things like that.
In the United States, there's the 4th of July, Independence Day. And I think it's kind of similar. A lot of people in the United States also have barbecues, and of course there are fireworks. But some people, they take some time just to think about, okay, how far along the United States have come since, I guess, it was declared independence.
That's true. You'll always hear people who like to make that comparison, what things were like back then, what things are like now. They like to make that comparison. And then there are those who like to compare, then with the way things are, not compare, they would like to make projections. They like to predict. With the way things are right now, things are looking promising, or maybe things aren't looking too good. They have these opinions. Well, the same thing goes for the Australians. They like to think about, are things looking good, as we look into the future, or do we have things that we really need to think about now? Well, that is Australia. And now we want to move to the next country, and it's just right next door to Australia. It's New Zealand. And now for the third reading of this article. Here's Steve.
New Zealand. Auckland, New Zealand has its anniversary day each year on January 29. This year, the Kiwis hosted one of the world's largest one-day regattas, the America's Cup. Nearly 1,000 sailors raced yachts in 35 events in Waitemata and Manukau harbors. Spectators on shore enjoy picnicking, outdoor concerts, an arts and crafts market, airplane demonstrations, and exhibits. Let's read one reporter's account of the race.
If you've just tuned in, you're listening to Advanced Radio. My name is Liz Archer, and here in the studio with me, we have Howie and Winnie. We've been talking about different holidays that happen to fall on January 26th. And so far, we've mentioned India and Australia. Now we're moving over to New Zealand. This holiday that we're looking at, actually, it isn't always on January 26th, but it's usually celebrated at the end of January each year. And what's the holiday?
Anniversary Day.
Anniversary Day. Interesting way of naming a holiday. Anniversary Day. I wonder why they just don't say birthday. Okay, anyways, Anniversary Day. That's their choice. So how do the Kiwis, the people of New Zealand, that is, how do they celebrate this year?
Well, this year, the Kiwis will host the world's largest one-day regatta.
Okay, what is regatta?
Yes, it's a sports event with boat races. And these are not just tiny boats, but these are huge yachts. And as it says later on in line 4, the America's Cup include over 1,000 sailors and 35 racing events.
Okay, the America's Cup. Notice the apostrophe S, America's Cup. This is not to be confused with the America Cup. Okay, the America Cup, or Copa America, that's a soccer competition. And it's actually a competition where the men's national soccer teams from the South American Football Confederation, they get together and compete. And that's what you call the America Cup. But here in New Zealand, we're talking about the America's Cup. And I believe, if my research, if it's right, that's actually named after a boat or a yacht, actually, America. And it did very well one particular year. And ever since then, the competition just was named after that amazing yacht, America. Now, this America's Cup, it's actually called the most prestigious trophy in international yachting competition. So this is quite an event. It's held every 4 years. And so, as we mentioned, it's a huge competition now. Again, how many people are there in this competition?
It's 1,000 sailors in 35 events. And it's the largest one-day race or regatta. And it happened yesterday, actually. So if you are very curious about it, listeners, you can go online and you can find out who won this great race.
Okay, now, we don't mean that there are only 1,000 people participating. We know that there are 1,000 sailors, but as we know, for every competition, you need a lot of other people to make it happen. So if you already have 1,000 people just competing alone, think of how many people there would be doing the behind-the-scenes work and all the support work and stuff like that. Okay, and it's 35 events, 35 different events within this regatta, within this competition. That's pretty impressive. I did a little research, and apparently what they do is, it's not like you get all the yachts lined up and then ready, get set, go. Instead, it's one yacht against another yacht. you always have a challenger and a defender. And so they have these two yachts racing one another, and then the best one wins, and then you go from there. So it's two yachts at a time. So that could be very intense. Okay, now we have here Waitemata and Manukau. Okay, now what are they? They're both harbors. Waitemata is actually the harbor of Auckland, and Manukau is the second largest natural harbor in New Zealand. So it's not just a simple competition. You have 35 events held in this area with all these sailors, and you would imagine there would be a lot of spectators, right?
That's right. Spectators on shore enjoy picnicking, outdoor concerts, and arts and crafts market, airplane demonstrations, and exhibits.
Airplane demonstrations. What are those?
If I were to take a guess, there could be some air shows. There could be also some airplane exhibits on the ground, so you can bring your kids, or if you want, you can even sit in one of the cockpits. So it's not just for people who like sailing. You go there to have some fun, too. There are arts and crafts markets and other exhibits.
All right, and don't forget there's food.
Can't forget that.
Right, so it's not just for the elite, the people who can afford to have these expensive yachts. It's not just their affair, their occasion, but it's also for a lot of families. You can take your kids, your grandparents, whoever, to go and enjoy this spectacular competition. All right, so even though you have 35 events out there in the waters for sailors to try out in their yachts, there's also a lot going on in the surrounding areas. Much can happen on dry land as well. And naturally, with so much going on, you have to have a reporter to come and report on what's going on. Now, we don't have the most immediate report, but we do have an account by a reporter who was able to enjoy the celebration and the competition. Here is the next section. We'll have our next reading. Sails finally unfurl and the chase is on. Please join us with the reading.
Sails finally unfurl and the chase is on. A pennant is raised, a gun sounds, the wind rises on cue, and synchronized chaos breaks out aboard the most expensive racing yachts ever built. Just like that, the America's Cup chase is on. And you recall what all the fuss is about. It's about the most talented sailors in the world, all gathered on two short stretches of water on Hauraki Gulf. Auckland has a rare combination of the best talent, equipment, and an ever-changing venue with a nasty streak. Rest assured, the challengers will accumulate some battle scars along the way. The America's Cup is all about excellence, overcoming problems, and steering smartest through a stiff wind.
Well, this writer begins his little account with a very interesting description. What does he say?
A pennant is raised, a gun sounds, the wind rises on cue, and synchronized chaos breaks out aboard the most expensive racing yachts ever built.
Okay, now what is pennant?
A pennant is a triangle-shaped flag that is often used during races. And so in this case, they used a pennant to signal the beginning of the race.
Okay, so you have this little flag, this
Yes.
triangular flag getting raised. Okay, now we also have this phrase here, on cue. What is that, Howie?
On cue, it's something that happens exactly when you planned or exactly at the moment that it's supposed to happen.
Okay, so if I give you a signal and I want you to react accordingly or act accordingly, then you are acting on cue, my cue. Okay, and then we have this word synchronized. Synchronized chaos, I think that's what the writer said. What is synchronized?
Synchronized means that it's happening at the same time. So if you ever watch synchronized swimming, that's when all the swimmers swim in the exact pattern. And when they say synchronized chaos, it's kind of ironic because synchronized means it's happening at the same time, and chaos is some unexpected events erupting at the same time. And so this writer suggesting is that at this one moment in time, all this craziness and chaos happens.
What a description. Now, the word synchronized, maybe I'd like to introduce another phrase, in sync.
Yes.
Yes. No, I'm not talking about
Not
this
the boy
musical.
band.
Yeah, I'm not talking about this performance group of 5 male singers. No, I'm talking about this phrase, in sync. Now, we mentioned earlier, on cue. We also have in sync. And sync, S-Y-N-C, is actually a shortened version of synchronize. In synchronization. But since synchronization is such a long word, we've shortened it to in sync. So we can say, for example, maybe we have a ballet performance and every move was done in such a way, so organized, everything was done in sync.
Another way to use the word sync, which is short for synchronize, is with computer products, of course.
Yes.
So, for example, if you have a PDA, a personal digital device, or you have a cell phone or an MP3 player, and you want to synchronize it with the contents on your computer, you say, hey, I need to sync my cell phone, I need to sync my MP3 player, I need to sync my PDA with the information that's on my computer.
Right. That's good. Sinking. But we're not talking about like something is falling below the surface of the water. Sinking. Okay, moving on. We're looking at a competition where people race the world's most expensive racing yachts. And it's a very competitive event. Now, by the way, I read somewhere that the yachts used in America's Cup, the yachts need to be built in the country that they're representing. So it's not like, for example, the Italian team, that they can commission their yacht to be made in the U.S. It needs to be made in your own country. And these are very expensive racing equipments. It's a very competitive event. And what do we see in lines 16 through 17?
It's about the most talented sailors in the world, all gathered on 2 short stretches of water on Hauraki Gulf.
Okay. They are in this Gulf, Hauraki Gulf, excuse my pronunciation. Okay, these sailors are very experienced. They're with these expensive racing yachts, and they're out here in the Hauraki Gulf. And the Gulf is actually the entrance to Auckland Harbor. Now, looking at the next paragraph, we see that all this is happening in Auckland, and how is that described in lines 19 through 21?
Auckland has a rare combination of the best talent, equipment, and an ever-changing menu with a nasty streak.
Interesting. First of all, what is venue?
Venue is simply the place where a public event or a meeting happens. And so the venue in this case is Hauraki Gulf.
Okay. And then we have nasty streak. I love that phrase.
It's interesting how the writer here uses the phrase nasty streak, using it to describe an object or a thing, because normally we talk about a nasty streak, it's a mean characteristic. We're talking about people. Sometimes we say, hey, that person has a nasty streak. They could be really mean. Or we can even describe an animal. That dog looks very calm and nice, but has a nasty streak if you try to pet it or touch it too much. But here it's saying that the venue has a nasty streak.
Interesting. Interesting way of describing. But in spite of all this, notice the next line, we're told to relax. Rest assured, as we see at the end of line 21. Why is that? Lines 22 to 23, what do we see?
The challengers will accumulate some battle scars along the way. The America's Cup is all about excellence, overcoming problems, and steering smartest through a stiff wind.
Okay, what are battle scars?
Once again, the author of this little article here is kind of being very descriptive in a way that you normally wouldn't be. Battle scars, when we think about battles, we think about war, we think about maybe a fight, like a boxing match or something like that. And if someone gets punched in the face a lot, and they will develop scars after many fights. And the same thing if someone who's gone into battle, a soldier, they may have a scar from a bullet hole or a knife wound. And here, since this race is so intense and the venue has such a nasty streak, the challengers will accumulate some battle scars, meaning that they will get banged up. Maybe the boats will be damaged a little bit. Maybe even the people themselves, they will be emotionally worn out by it. So that's what we're talking about, battle scars.
Okay, so it's funny, we're told rest assured, but then at the same time, these competitors, they know what they're getting themselves into.
Exactly.
Okay, so even though things are kind of rough, even though this area, this venue, it's got this reputation, it's not going to be easy, but relax. Why? Because the people know what they're getting themselves into. It's to be expected. They're going to be roughing it. They're going to encounter a lot of challenges against the forces of nature. And we have this list, as Winnie had just mentioned, we have the strong winds, that you have to steer through. It's about finding all sorts of problems as you're trying to get your yacht to do, what it's supposed to do and go into the course that it's supposed to take. And it's about fine excellence. It's about fine sportsmanship and displaying excellence as you are working together as a team on the yacht. Okay, well, we're almost out of time. Now, friends, regardless of where you might be, the past 2 days have been significant for many different people in different parts of the world. For some, it's about doing whatever it takes to get back home to be with family and loved ones for the holidays. For others, it's about celebrating the birthday of a nation through festivities and or reflections. Then there are those who make this day special by joining an international sporting event and meeting people from other countries to have a friendly competition. So what do you think? How is this day special for you? Let us know what you think by sharing your thoughts with us on our Advanced English Corner. All you have to do is go to our website, www.studioclassroom.com, click on Advanced English Corner, and while you're at it, be sure to take some time to see what our teachers have to say on our topic talks. This concludes our lesson. Please join us again next time for a brand new article. Until then, this is Liz,
Howie,
and
Winnie,
saying goodbye.
Goodbye.